Okay, amazing. Here we are again. It is the Empowering Raregivers Welcome to Our World series. My name's Crystal Barrett O'Loughlin. I'm the founder and CEO of Raregivers. And with me, my co-host, Dr. Laura Riordan, straight from Portugal. Hello, Laura. Good to see you.
Hello, everyone. Really good to see you again, and I'm really excited about our guest.
Oh, we have an amazing guest today. Okay, Monica Powell. I have known Monica. It's going on a decade now. I can't even believe it. We've been mentoring women together. She is just an amazing CEO coach. She's co-founder of Monarch Mavens. She is co-founder of Blue Oak Nutraceuticals. She's ex-Apple. She's ex like everything. I feel like you've done so many things in your life, Monica, and in your personal life as well, very deeply connected into our Rare Givers community. So if you could introduce yourself a little bit deeper and also talk about your journey into this world, we'd be so grateful.
Well, thank you, Crystal and Laura, for having me today. Just really thrilled to be in community with the two of you. Um, as far as my story, gosh, where do we begin? Perhaps, as you mentioned on the professional front, I guess very simply, I'm here in Silicon Valley. I'm, one of the tech startup people. Spent a decade at Apple early on, and then went on to do a series of startups, as many people here in the Valley do. And then finally was CEO of a cyber intelligence company before the pandemic hit. And so, of course, being a mom, the professional journey is always, uh, I wouldn't say interrupted, but it is always woven perhaps, by the personal journey, of course. And so, in between there, took time off. Have two daughters, two beautiful daughters, and then actually, about 20 years ago, gosh, it's been 20 years now, was first diagnosed with breast cancer. And so, in some sense, that was kind of like, the first time that you're stumped. And 20 years ago, it wasn't quite as common. And so that was when you ask all those questions, right? What's going on? What is death about? What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? All of those things. So that's kind of when, in some sense, my big, awakening journey began. And then 10 years ago, my daughter, basically we found out that she had a rare disease. And in some sense, I feel like because I had dealt with so many big issues with, the cancer 20 years ago, I was much, much more prepared to deal with this devastating news. And gosh, and here we are.
And here we are, and here we are. And I've had the great pleasure of meeting your whole family, not your extended family, but both of your daughters, and their journey. Would it be appropriate for me to say the name of this disease?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Friedrich's ataxia. And for those listening, it might be helpful if you could talk a little bit about what that is like within the family dynamic, right? So this experience of living with rare, and so many know my journey, having three brothers who had passed away from mucopolysaccharidosis or Hunter syndrome. The whole family is organized around love and care for those in the family that need that most love and care, even though we know that the mothers and the fathers and the caregivers also need care too. But maybe a little bit about what that experience, that journey is like for you.
Yeah, I think part of this, I think in retrospect, um, uh, I think every person processes it differently, right? Whether it's your friends or your family. And in some sense, everyone internalizes it and is reacting from their perspective and based on their lived experience. I think because I had done so much processing before, in some sense, I was kind of, I don't know if there's an ahead of the game, but I had gone further in that journey to acceptance, perhaps,
Mm.
than some others. And so I think, and again, in retrospect, uh, didn't quite understand that, didn't quite get that because, I was also still processing. But I think, different people handle it differently. And if there's one thing that I've come to learn is, it's all a journey. And everyone comes at it from a different angle and takes a different amount of time, and it's all okay. It's all good. But yes, definitely everyone around you, uh, um, you know, is processing in a different way. And I think, the uh, I wouldn't say trick, but it's kind of how you allow and how you um, uh, uh, accommodate, those different uh, stages, if you will, that each one is at.
Sure.
Mm.
Um, I'm curious with your executive background, if there were any tools from your leadership that really helped you either with your own personal cancer journey or with your daughter and as she was being diagnosed.
Yeah, I think, well, interestingly enough, when I was diagnosed with cancer, that was actually when my journey into meditation started. And so I had a very, very intense practice for, a couple of decades there now. And that actually was what allowed me to watch the fear and watch the worry and watch, the guilt and all those emotions that come up, and in some sense respond to them rather than react to them. Of course, it's a process, you can't do it every time, but basically the discipline of that practice was what helped me. The professional side of life allowed us as a family to actually make some adjustments. With Friedrich's ataxia, my daughter actually had a spinal fusion surgery, which ended up having her in a wheelchair. And so a lot of physical therapy and so on had to happen. And my husband, can hold her, can carry her. And so it made more sense for him to take some time out to be there for her journey. And I was able to basically, be working in order to keep things going for the family. And so I think uh, those, so the executive experience gave me that option, right? And that's kind of how we juggled things, yeah. And we went back and forth, right? And so now he's working and I'm doing other things.
Yes, yes, those shifting roles that just continue
Yeah.
to evolve. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
It's such a good question about the professional side because we actually find a lot of rare mothers have deeply invested in their work as a way to find meaning out of this experience, as a way to actually have short or long breaks throughout the day from the caregiving cycle, and then at the same time, there's all these emotions that come up, trying to work through the feelings first so that you can do all of these other amazing coaching. And you certainly guided me as a board member. I'm so grateful to you, Monica. We talked every week for over a year. about how to, evolve this offering called Raregivers. So I was just kind of curious, in this meditative practice that you talked about, quite a few of the emotions that come up. Is that still your refuel? Or does it become second nature to just kind of recognize those emotions? And then do you talk about them in family and in professional circles? That's one thing we're very interested in. Are the doctors and the nurses and the professional community being pulled into these conversations as well? I'd just love your thoughts on that.
20 years ago when I started that part of the journey, it was all considered woo-woo and, crazy. The good news is that today it's very mainstream, right? Everyone has the app, everyone's kind of doing their thing. Um, so on one hand, it is much more part of the regular language, if you will. But on the other hand, I'm not sure that, people still talk about it, right? I don't think this is something that is discussed much. But that is where I go to. The other thing that I do as well is, I love plants, I love nature, I love my garden. And so, just being with nature, right? Going on walks. I think a lot of those techniques also really help with grounding and giving you a little bit of space and time to deal with whatever else is going on around you.
And we see the beautiful nature in your background. I love the lily pads and just
Yeah,
sort of
I know. I
bringing us.
know.
And I'm
And
going to add one more thing, and the other thing
yes.
is animals, dogs and cats and whatever
Oh,
animals, right? To me, they are total angels. We have a service dog here for my daughter, and they just, they got to get out on their walks. They, demand attention, and they're absolutely an important part of the healing process, I think.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for offering those the things that people can do that really don't take that much time. If you build them in. We talk about little sips of self-care. So those that you've offered are very much in that category of doable um, self-care kind of release valves throughout the day. So we appreciate that. Um,
So I know that you've launched a new company. Speaking of nature and building things from the ground and bringing these sort of natural I don't know the right words to use, so I'm not going to choose the words. I'm just going to ask you to describe this new phase of offerings that you've founded.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
So,
hear it. Let's hear about
so,
Blue Oak Nutraceuticals.
well, in some sense, kind of my um, uh, normal Silicon Valley startup life kind of ended when my cancer came back just before the pandemic. And so that was great because I was able to, do my healing then. But that's when I started the Monarch Mavens, which is a consulting company where we were focused on helping startups, grow, scale their business, and so on. And in that process, next thing, we were introduced to a pharma, a drug discovery expert. And we know nothing about pharma, we know nothing about drug discovery, but we started talking and we started listening to what he had. And he had a lot of inventions already to his name and many more in his back pocket. And as we started, this is my business partner, Sonia, and I at the Monarch Mavens. As we started listening to the story, all of a sudden I read the research and realized, wait a minute, light bulb went off. It's like, wait a minute, this could help my daughter. And as we read more, it was too good to be true. And so we spent months and months and months doing due diligence, digging in, trying to poke holes into it, going to major universities and hearing the story being told to, the top scientists and doctors and so on. And when I saw light bulbs going off in each of their eyes as they heard what my business partner Sandeep had discovered, that's when we knew, okay, wait a minute, this makes no sense. This has to get to market. More people need this what is now a dietary supplement. And so, yeah, we decided to self-fund and create the company. And basically we created a company called Blue Oak Nutraceuticals that has a dietary supplement. And the discovery that's in the made was basically of a molecule that triggers mitochondrial biogenesis. So it's a mitochondrial supplement, and it allows the body to make more mitochondria. And, I'm sure a lot of you know that more mitochondria means more energy. And Dr. Navio down at UCSD has written papers about how the body actually knows how to heal itself. All it needs is more energy, right? So as soon as you start giving it more energy, it can, it can essentially accelerate that healing process. The only thing that makes more mitochondria today is exercise, but a lot of people, can't exercise, and so this is key. We founded the company in 2023. Shortly thereafter, my daughter needed extra support. And so she was the first one on the dietary supplement called MitoCatalyst. 12 months later, I can't say more, but all I can say is basically, she's in a much better place, feeling much better because of that intervention, if you will. And so, and since then, more and more people are experiencing, are taking the dietary supplement, and we're hearing some great stories. So it's just very heartwarming.
Amazing. And so personal. So an
Yeah.
offering to the world, and then something that very personally, you're
Yes,
invested.
yes.
That
And personally for me, and also personally for me with cancer, I'm on a whole bunch of meds and haven't been able to tolerate them. But again, because of the dietary supplement, it's supporting reduction of inflammation. I'm also able to tolerate some of those meds. So it's also directly affecting me.
wow, that is amazing. Well, so in just a little while here, you're going to be bringing together some experts from around the world, and I want to make sure that we talk about that. So, tell us a little bit about what's happening at UCLA. So,
Yeah.
my alma mater, I'm so excited here, but at UCLA, you're
So
going to
yeah, in May we're going to have some clinicians join us, and we're going to talk about mitochondria and what how they essentially can fuel the healing process and the healing journey. So basically, whether it doesn't it's crazy. And I'm not a biologist. I didn't know anything about this, but now I know. Starting from the age of 20, basically the number of mitochondria start reducing, and that's effectively the aging process, right? And when we have issues, whether it's genetic or environmental or what have you, that accelerates that process. And so now, if you can just simply trigger to so that the body is actually creating more mitochondria, just a little bit more mitochondria, then it actually knows where to send that energy and, essentially initiate that journey back to wellness. So it's exciting. We have some of the researchers at UCSD that have written more than 64 papers on the molecule. We have Dr. Sandeep Dugar, our co-founder, who has, spent 15 plus years studying the molecule. We have a very esteemed clinician from UCLA joining us as well. And Crystal, you're going to be there too, talking about.
will. I will, talking
Yeah.
about the emotional journeys that these medical experiences
Yeah.
trigger, and the feelings that come up. So we always say in our Rare Givers world, address the feelings first, and then you'll be better equipped, more sustainably equipped to go into the medical support. And so
If
we're
I can interrupt there,
yeah,
so feelings are emotions, right? And emotions are just thoughts. And so if you address those thoughts, one is you're not reacting, right? You're coming from a calmer space. But the other thing also is that they take up so much energy. You get tired worrying, right? There's so much energy lost in those negative thoughts. So if you can address them right up front, all that energy can be redirected to doing what you need to do.
Absolutely. And that's all about awareness, right? Understanding like, oh, that's an emotion, which is a story that we're telling ourselves that's given, but it has data from the body. So what's the body trying to say to us so that we can address that emotional state that we're experiencing? And
Yeah.
yeah, and then that goes back to the practice of your beautiful meditation.
And sometimes it needs you to just go out and kind of get it physically, get your energy out, right? Sometimes it's about talking to someone and just being heard, which is why the community that you're creating here is so important. And sometimes it's basically going to the inside and kind of dealing with it from the inside. So yeah, different techniques for different times.
Mhm.
Well, and since you're a technologist as well as a rare mother and changing the world with Blue Oak Nutraceuticals, um, I might just mention that you've also advised us on use of artificial intelligence and our multilingual strategies, because when we're talking about feelings, we're talking about emotions. When things are highly emotional, you revert back to your native language, whatever that is, whatever other languages you've learned in the course of your life or your work or moving or growing up. There are just some fundamentals, that we need to be communicating with each other in language. And I had the great honor of taking our coalition developed Raregivers emotional journey map and guidebook. And that method was informed by Dr. Laura Riordan. She's created the exercises. Monica, you've experienced the exercises. I know your husband's experienced the exercises as well. And we're now translating this into 12 languages and 400 on the horizon with artificial intelligence. So I was able to go to New Delhi, India, and actually teach our workshop in both English and Hindi, which was just amazing, right? That couldn't have happened. I think it would have been so much more difficult to happen decades ago. But I just wonder if there are also cultural kind of considerations for using more holistic support within family and within medical conditions, and also cultural considerations for processing emotion and feelings. And would love your perspective on that too, Monica.
Yeah, that's a really good insight, Crystal. And absolutely, right? I think every culture has their assumptions, right? Kind of like the worldview that they live in. It could be it's cultural, there's a religious piece to it, whatever the predominant thesis is in that area and so on. And so a lot of the assumptions we make, judgments we make are colored by culture. In some cultures, if something happens and you have a child with an issue, well, what did you do? It must be your fault, right? There's judgment attached. And so I think being cognizant of those nuances is actually an important layer, perhaps, that we could add to that journey map. Absolutely.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I look forward to exploring that with you. Is there any particular stage that has resonated with you? I know you've spent a fair amount of time, referring people to the journey map, but we talk about 6 stages that are not linear stages. These are, a little bit like chutes and ladders. We tend to go in cycles, but adjusting, first noticing change, adjusting with or without a diagnosis, um, shifting responsibilities within the family, the realities of full-time care, the worry or the real experience of end of life, and then finding meaning. I'm just curious if any of those stages really resonate with you.
I love the journey map, and thank you, Laura and Crystal, for making it happen because it really, one, it tells you that you're not alone, right? It's a journey that many people are on. And secondly, it kind of allows you to be in the stage that you're at, recognize where you're at, and know that this too will pass, right? And you'll move on. Um, to answer your question, I think the part that resonates with me the most actually is the understanding of changes in relationships, right? Because each person, friends and family are process this differently. They react differently. They're coming from and they judge differently, right? And so sometimes, if you are actually handling it well, sometimes people think, well, maybe you don't care, right? And because they're still processing, they're still in anguish and so on. So I just feel that, recognizing that relationships will change because people are processing differently in different ways. It's that I think that's a struggle. That's a really hard thing to deal with, which is why some of the support groups that you have, Crystal, are so critical because in some sense you have to allow yourself to process. And Laura, and maybe you can add more to that. But I think for me, dealing with different people processing differently and those relationships that change as your life changes, right? Because your situation changes as well,
Yeah,
is really important.
I completely agree. I think it's a huge opportunity to be able to process with people that are in that same place or same stage that you are, or have wisdom for you from a different place or stage. And you also mentioned something that's beautiful that I believe is grace, where you offer those that aren't looking at you from where you are, maybe assuming something, to give them grace that you mentioned that it might seem easeful for you, but really there's a difficulty or an internal struggle. You're handling it with mindfulness and with the wisdom that you have from so many years of experience. So it might look differently externally. Uh, so to be able to, as the person going through where you are with those relationships that perhaps aren't for whatever reason understanding where you are, to give them that grace is beautiful. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I read a statistic yesterday. The MacArthur Foundation published a study on disability, and they said that 2% of the grants and funding sources, 2% in the country of the United States are going towards disability services, but 26% of our population is affected by physical disabilities and emotional and mental disabilities that you may not be able to see. So I think that's what we're trying to do here is increase awareness by talking. Here we are talking to each other. So we're doing our own belief systems, but at the same time, exploring the nuances of those and sharing our thoughts with others. And that's what this podcast is all about. Welcome to our world is just to open up, pull the blinds, get behind the curtain, see what's happening in the world of rare, chronic, and complex diseases, and really any medicalized life experience. We don't have to put a label on it. Just when life gets medical, people get emotional, and it's our belief system that we need to deal with those emotions up front. So I'd ask you this, Monica, if you knew then what you know now, what would you tell yourself in your early iteration of Monica Powell?
Wow.
Just wrap that up in some nice little.
You know, you can't second guess, right? You can't, whatever you did in the past, you did in the past based on what you knew then. What I know now is just give yourself the space and time to grieve, right? To yeah, just to deal with what life is throwing at you. And sometimes, guess what? And I keep saying you got to make lemonade. You got lemons, you got to make lemonade. Well, sometimes lemonade is really crummy. You don't want lemonade. But this too will pass. This too will pass.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you
Agreed. The grief uh, aspect is wonderful wisdom to offer that you have to feel that um, grieving. It's real. So thank you for naming that.
And I have to say that, oftentimes we avoid, right? We don't pay attention. We find reasons to get busy with other stuff and and not address these difficult emotions. But that's also part of the process. And when you're ready, you will be ready. So it's okay.
Mm, mm.
absolutely correct. So you heard it here from Monica Powell. Tend to your emotions, get out in nature, try some meditations, and consider joining us either in person or I'm sure, some sort of recording element at UCLA in the coming months. Certainly check out Blue Oak Nutraceuticals on the web. And Monica, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. It's been really fun to reconnect with you, and I just feel calmer.
Thank you, Crystal and Laura. This has been very nice. Thank you. Heartwarming.
Beautiful to see you.